Okay. So, in this particular lecture, we are going to basically discuss a few topics on calculus, and this is going to be kind of a one shot video on a number of topics which are very important if we consider calculus and mathematics. More important for honor student, very knowledgeable for students who are appearing for competitive exams like JEE Mains and Advanced. So let's start. So the first thing, about calculus is starting with, we are going to start with differentiability. We are just going to define the statement of differentiability, because concepts about limits, I'm not going to talk about those. So some fx, or rather f, I don't have a eraser in this format, so I'm just cutting it down. So f is said to be differentiable at x equals to a if the limit h tends to 0, f of x plus h minus f of x over h at x equals to a exists. And for a limit to exist at some point, you know that the left hand limit must equal the right hand limit. That is the limit plus must equal limit minus. This much is clear. What I mean by the statement is that, suppose you have limit x tends to a fx. So for this limit to exist, limit x tends to a plus fx must equal limit x tends to a minus fx. This is called the right hand limit, this is called the left hand limit. Okay, clear? So this was just the basic definition about differentiability. Okay, so I'm removing the board. The next topic we have is Leibniz theorem. Okay, so what is there under Leibniz theorem? So if you have two functions u and v, okay, and you are trying to differentiate it some n number of times, so the collective method of differentiating it n number of times is given by un, I mean differentiating un times, and v0, that is v is remaining as the function itself, we are not differentiating it even once, plus you have nc1 n minus 1th derivative of u times the first derivative of v, plus nc2 u n minus 2th derivative of u and the second derivative of v, and this continues till ncn, something like the binomial theorem itself, where you have u0, that is the no derivative of u, the function itself, and the nth derivative of v. This is the Leibniz theorem. You can easily prove it using mathematical induction. Okay, you can easily prove it using mathematical induction. Okay, this is what we call the Leibniz theorem. Next, if we talk about the topics like concavity, convexity, and point of inflection, so basically this sort of a curve is called convex, this sort of a curve is called concave, and if you have this sort of a curve where the convexity and concavity changes at some point, say x equals to a, then this point is said to be the point of inflection. Clear? So basically how to find it, that if for all x belongs to some interval ab such that d2y over dx square in this interval is greater than 0, clear, then y is convex in the interval ab. Clear? If for all x belongs to cd, okay, we don't need to search that, basically comma, d2y over dx square is less than 0, then y is concave in cd. and if for x equals to a, d2y over dx square equal to 0, then a is the point of inflection. Clear? This much is clear, I guess. Okay. So let us move on to the next topic, which is the curvature. Clear? What is curvature? So curvature is basically the, suppose you have a curve like this. So if you take 2 points like this and you draw angles to these, okay, so and this is a horizontal axis, so change of this angle, okay, suppose this is alpha and this is alpha plus some delta alpha. So this change in angle is basically basically this is other ratio of this change in angle is taken with respect to the change in arc between these 2 points, and that ratio is basically called your curvature. Okay, and the formula for y equals to fx, some curve y equals to fx, suppose this is y equals to fx, so the curvature is given as d2y over dx square over 1 plus dy over dx whole square, this whole to the power 3 by 2. This can also be written as y2, this can be written as y1. Acha, rho is called the radius of curvature. Radius of curvature is the, suppose you take a very small point like this and you find the curvature of this. So if basically we actually can assume the curvature of a point by comparing it with a circle which has an arc coinciding with this portion. So the center of that circle, suppose you have a circle like this, the center of this circle, the radius of this circle is basically called the radius of curvature, which is given by 1 over k. K is the curvature. The reciprocal of curvature is radius of curvature. Am I clear? So this formula is basically, I guess it's understood what will be the formula of radius of curvature. And basically if we are talking about the center of curvature, that is the center of this particular circle which is used to compare the curvature. Then if the center of curvature is alpha beta, then alpha is given by x minus y1 times, x minus y1 times 1 plus y1 square over y2, and beta is given as y plus 1 plus y1 square over y2. Clear? Achha, these all are for Cartesian coordinate. Okay, these all are for Cartesian coordinate. This motion is clear, I guess. Achha, if for polar form, that is the curve y equals to fx is basically written as r is equals to f theta. Clear? Got it? Okay. R is the radius vector and theta is called the vectorial angle, I guess you people know. Okay, so if this is the form in which you are provided with the equation of the curve, then your radius of curvature formula is given as r square plus r1 square whole to the power 3 over 2 upon r square plus 2r1 square minus r times r2, where r1 is basically dr over d theta and r2 is d2r over d theta square. Clear? And k is same as 1 over the radius of curvature. Am I clear? So these formulas, do memorize these formulas. And if you are given, okay, I am rubbing this portion. Okay. Achha, also if you are given parametric form, what is parametric form? So your y is given as basically as a function of some parameter t, and your x is given as a function of that particular parameter itself, which is let's say phi t. Clear? So here what happens is that your dy over dx is written as dy over dt divided by dx over dt. Clear? So basically this is can be written as f dash t over this. Am I clear? Is this understood? Okay. Acha. Similarly, if you are talking about d2y over dx square, then differentiate this with respect to t first. So this gives us phi dash t times f double dash t minus f dash t times phi double dash t over phi dash t whole square times you have a dt over dx. Dt over dx means 1 over dx over dt, right? That is your phi dash t, 1 over phi dash t. So here you have a phi dash t. Clear? Got it? Okay. So this portion is clear, I guess. So I'm rubbing this portion. Okay. Next we are talk about what are envelopes. Okay. So we talk about envelopes. Clear? So what are envelopes? Basically, if you are given a equation of a family of curve, fxy equal alpha is equals to 0 as the equation of a family of curve, where alpha is a parameter. So basically, the boundary of the family of curve is called the envelope. Clear? For example, if you have the equation say x minus alpha square plus y square equals to 1, so this basically gives you the circles like this. Clear? Of unit radius. Clear? This. So if you draw the straight line like this at y equals to 1, so these form the envelopes of the family of curve x minus alpha square plus y square is equals to 1. Okay, so I guess this portion is clear. What are envelopes? So how to find envelopes? I'm giving you the brief description. So if you are given this simple family of curve equation, okay, where alpha is a parameter, so what you need to do is that you first need to partial derivative, differentiate it partially with respect to alpha and equate that to 0. And then what you need to do is that this is suppose say 1, this is suppose say 2, eliminate alpha from 1 and 2. Okay, so eliminate alpha from 1 and 2, and the resulting equation will be nothing but your equation of envelope. Clear? This is one part, and there is also a shortcut related to it. If you have the family of curve of the form say axy is an independent function of x and y, which is the coefficient to alpha square, plus of this function b of x and y, coefficient to alpha, and you have cxy equals to 0. This is a family of curve. So the equation of envelope, so this is given as b square is equals to 4ac. Clear? It's given as b square is equals to 4ac. Okay, so next, if we have say two parameters to the family of curve, that is the equation is given as f of x, y, alpha and beta equals to 0, where alpha, beta are parameters. If this is the case, then you will surely have one more equation which gives you the relation between alpha and beta. Clear? So if you are given two parameters in the family of curve equation, then you will be given one more equation which contains the relation between the two parameters. Then what you need to do is that you need to form three equations. Okay, the first equation being partial derivatives plus this is equals to 0. This is the first equation. Similarly, partial derivative of phi with respect to alpha d alpha plus phi beta d beta is equal to, this is the second equation. And the third equation is given by comparing the coefficients of each of them. So you get partial derivative of f with respect to alpha upon partial derivative of phi with respect to alpha, which equals partial derivative of f with respect to beta and partial derivative of phi with respect to beta, their ratios. So this is the third equation. Okay, this much is clear, I guess. So I'm rubbing it. So now you need to eliminate alpha beta from 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and you are done. Okay, clear? Acha. So the next topic which we will be talking about are asymptotes. Okay, so I'm rubbing this. The next thing we will be talking about are asymptotes. Okay, what are asymptotes? So suppose you have a, say, this sort of a or rather say, not like this. Let me draw a proper curve. Okay, say this is the given curve, or this is kind of an exponential curve. If you draw a tangent like this, okay, which seems to meet at infinity, then such a tangent is called an asymptote to that particular curve. Okay, so how to find? There are two types of asymptotes. One are parallel to x-axis. So finding parallel to x-axis, you just need to equate the coefficients of the highest power of x to 0. What I mean is that, suppose you have an equation, say y square x square minus 9x square is equals to 0. So y square is the coefficient of x square and 9 is the coefficient of x square, and x square is the square, 2 is the highest power of x. So you need to equate y square minus 9 to 0, and you get y is equals to plus minus 3. So these are the asymptotes which are parallel to x-axis. Clear? Similarly, if you need to find the parallel to y-axis, then just what you need to do is that equate the coefficients of the highest powers of y-axis, and you are done. So if you do it here only, so the highest power of y is y square and the coefficient is x square. There is nothing else, so x square equals to 0. That means x equals to 0 is the asymptote to parallel to y-axis. Clear? So these are the rectilinear kind of asymptotes. There are one more type of asymptote which are the oblique asymptotes, which are neither parallel to x-axis nor parallel to y-axis, of this sort of a form. So finding those are kind of a bit complex. Let's see. Grabbing this board. So basically what you need to do is that, okay, to understand this, let us take a problem. Okay, so I'm giving you a brief first. First what you need, okay, let us solve a problem to understand this. Okay, so let's say we have an equation x cube plus x square y plus xy square plus y cube plus 2x square plus 2y square plus 3xy plus 4x plus 9y plus 21 is equals to 0. This is a equation of a particular curve. The first thing what we need to do is that you need to basically separate this equation into like powers. So this is one part of like powers, that see each individual element has the power of 3. X cube, 2 plus 1 3, 1 plus 2 3 3. Like this is square, this is linear power, and name them as phi 3, phi 2 and phi 1. And do one more thing, that put y equals to m and x equals to 1, so that the independent variable becomes m only. So this becomes 1 plus m square plus m cube. Clear? This is first equation. Phi 2 becomes 2 plus 2m square plus 2m, sorry, plus 3m, and phi 1m becomes 4 plus 9m. Okay, up till this much is clear, I guess. Okay, now you need to find the roots of the highest power function. Clear? So I'm writing this much. Okay, so you have 1 plus m square plus m cube. So m cube plus m square plus m plus 1 is equals to 0. That means m square times m plus 1 plus, here you have m plus 1 is equals to 0. That means ki m plus 1 times m square plus 1 is equals to 0. This will give you complex root. So m is equals to minus 1 is the only real value of m. Okay, so there will actually be only one real oblique asymptote, and the rest will be the rectilinear asymptotes. Basically, the number of asymptotes which will equal the highest power of the particular equation. So there is one oblique asymptote, there is one asymptote parallel to x and one asymptote parallel to y axis. Okay, and so this is basically m equals to minus 1 basically gives you the slope of the asymptote. So y is equals to mx plus c. Clear? So this m is y, and to find c, what you need to do is that c is basically minus phi of the second highest power, that is 2 of m, over phi dash 3m. I guess it's clear now, the formula. So m is minus 1, so c becomes, what is phi to m? So let me remember. So phi to m was basically 2 plus 2m square plus 3m. So 2 plus 2m square, so 2 plus 2m square means 2 plus 3m, so minus 3 over phi dash m. So phi dash m will give you, it will give you 1 plus 2m plus 3m square. So 1 plus 2m, that means minus 2 plus 3m square, so plus 3. So this is 4, so this is 1, and here you have 3 plus 2 5, sorry, 3 minus 2 1, and this becomes 0, I guess, right? Sorry, 1 minus 2, I'm very sorry, this becomes 2, so the denominator becomes 2. Okay, so your oblique asymptote equation becomes y is equals to minus x plus half. Clear? Always remember the number of asymptotes will equal the degree. Achha, now let me tell you one more thing which we have not encountered in this problem, but you might encounter in your paper, which is if the roots of this equation, there are repeated roots, then what will happen? Because if there are repeated roots, then putting the value in this particular formula will yield you the same value of c. Clear? So it will yield you the same equation for m, but you need two different equations for same value of m. Am I getting to the point? So then we will use a particular method, like for example, since here the degree is 3, so we will use the formula c square over 2 factorial phi 2 3m plus c over 1 factorial phi 2 1m plus phi 1m is equals to 0. This means the second derivative, first derivative, no derivative, and c is the basically the y-intercept, and m is basically the value of the repeating root. Use this formula, put the value of m, you will get 2 or more values according to the degree of the equation, and you will get the proper required equation for the oblique asymptote. Am I clear? Okay, this portion is clear, I guess. Okay, next what we can do, okay, let me think the next thing what we can start with. So let us start with reduction formula. Clear? So I'm rubbing this. So reduction formula, under reduction formula, what you actually have is that you will have, equations related to powers of trigonometric functions, and those are basically shorthand forms of, for rather formulas of those particular integrals of the powers of trigonometric functions. So they are basically required to understand the pattern in the change as the integration is done step by step, and is very useful in solving definite integrals. So let me give you the formula one by one. I hope you will note it down. So the first formula is the integral of sine to the power nx dx, which is given as minus sine to the power n minus 1x cos x over n plus n minus 1 over 2, the integral of sine to the power n minus 2 dx. Okay, in minus 2 means integral sine to the power n minus 2x dx. Clear? The second formula is in integral cos nx dx, which is cos of n minus 1x sin x over n. Okay, and plus you have n minus 1 over 2 I n minus 2. Okay, clear? The next one, you have the integral of tan to the power nx dx, which is given as tan to the power n minus 1x over n minus 1 minus the integral of tan to the power n minus 2x dx. The fourth one, you have in is equal to integral sec to the power nx dx, which is given as sec to the power n minus 2x tan x over n minus 1 plus n minus 2 over n minus 1 I n minus 2. Now there is one question which may arise in your head, that is, how can we derive this formula? So deriving this formula, you just need to do by parts, integration by parts. Carefully notice the formulas, and noticing the formulas you can actually assume that how you will be doing the by parts if you know what is integration by parts. Am I clear? Up till number 4 is clear. We will move on to number 5. Okay, so the number 5 says that you have imn, which is integration of sine to the power mx cos to the power nx dx, and this basically has a number of two formulas. Basically, the first formula gives you sine of m plus 1 x cos of n minus 1x over m plus n, plus you have n minus 1 over m plus n im comma n minus 2. Okay, so the power of the sine function remains same, the power of the cos function decreases. Am I clear? And this happens when m and n both belong to the set of positive integers. And if m okay, let me first write the formula, then I will be telling you the criteria. Okay, the other formula will give you minus sine m plus 1x cos n plus 1x over n plus 1 plus m plus n plus 2 over n plus 1 im comma n plus 2. Okay, and when in this possible, if m and n, they are not mandatory to be belonging to z plus, but they may belong to the set of negative integers. Am I clear? Either m or n or both will belong to the set of negative integers. Am I clear? Okay, acha. Moving on to the number 6. The number 6, you have in is the integral of cot to the power nx dx, which is given as minus cot whole to the power n minus 1x over n minus 1 minus I n minus 2. The number 7 you have in is equals to integral cosec to the power nx dx, which is given as minus cosec to the power n minus 2x cot x over n minus 1 plus n minus 2 over n minus 1 I n minus 2. Clear up till this much? Okay, so this is actually a very hazardous process, you need to go on and on writing these all. Okay, and there is one more, let's say, which is given as I m comma n, which is the integral cos to the power mx and sine multiple angle nx. The n is multiplied with the angle. This is equals to minus cos to the power mx cos nx over m plus n plus m over m plus n I of m minus 1 comma n minus 1. Clear? So these are all the formulas which are there in your reduction formula case. Whatever problem will be given to you will be the definite integrals or the proofs related to the definite integrals of any of these integrals. So just remember the formula, put the definite integral and find out what it actually yields you to, and you are good to go. Am I clear? You will be at that point, you will be given a particular power. So you can actually, suppose you are given integral, say pi to 2 pi, let's say pi to 2 pi cosec square x dx. So you can actually put the values here. Okay, and you can find out what is the actual value. So I n minus 2 you need to find out at that moment. Okay, so in this way you must go on. I n minus 2 will lead to I n minus 4. Clear? Okay, so next we talk about the arc length of a curve. So arc length of a curve is basically coming out something called the rate of change of arc. So if this is a particular curve, and say you have an arc like this, so this arc is given as delta s. So the rate of change of this arc is given as ds over dx, and this is given as root over of 1 plus dy over dx whole square. This is a direct consequence of something called the Pythagoras theorem. Basically what happens, you join this. So this is your delta s, this is your delta x, and this is your delta y. So as you tend delta x to 0, your delta s changes to ds, and it actually comes to meet the arc. Okay, this becomes the arc. Okay, so you can from here do that ds is equals to root over of 1 plus dy over dx whole square times dx. So arc length of a curve will just be the integration of this. So integration of a to b ds, that is integration of a to b root over of 1 plus dy over dx whole square. Dx is basically the arc length of y from a to b. Clear? Acha, this is one formula. Now if you are given the parametric equation, that is y is equals to, let's say, psi t, and x is equals to phi t, then your s becomes, basically s means integral, say now it becomes, say, alpha to beta, that is phi of alpha is b, and phi of alpha is a, and psi of beta is b. Clear? So here the equation becomes phi dash square t plus psi dash square t. Got it? And if you are given in polar form, r is equals to f theta, then s becomes from integration from theta 1 to theta 2, that is, you can consider f theta 1 to be giving you the radius vector, which can in some way might be equivalent to a. Similarly you can do it for b also. So this is given as root over of r square plus dr over d theta whole square. Clear? this much. Okay, so I'm rubbing this. The next thing we will be talking about is finding the area. So area under curve, very easy to do. If you are asked to find the area of y is equals to fx from x equals to a and from x equals to a to x equals to b and x axis, then area will be equals to integration a to b fx dx. Clear? If it is area of y is equals to fx from y is equals to c to d and y axis, then the area is given as integration c to d f inverse of x dy. Am I clear? Because f inverse of x will be given in terms of y. Okay, up till this much is clear, I guess. Okay, I'm rubbing this. Third one is that if you are given the area between fx and psi x from x equals to a to b and x axis, the area is given as integration a to b fx minus psi x, the mod of this, okay, dx. Clear? Got it? And same thing will go for y also. This there we will be need to use the inverse functions, and we need to check the inverse image of a and b, and we will be having dy in place of dx. Up till this much is clear, I guess. Okay, and basically the one more thing which lies to this, that is the polar form. If you are given the polar form, what is the polar form? R is equals to f theta form. If you are given in this form, then your area basically becomes half. Suppose you are given theta equals to alpha, 2 theta equals to beta, and which is r square d theta. This is the equation of the area. Am I clear? Okay, the next topic we have is surface of revolution. Okay, surface of revolution. So we will not be talking about curve tracing in this particular video. We will talking it about I have already had a lecture on curve tracing in another video in my channel, so I'm leaving that for now. We're talking about the other topics. So okay, so next topic is surface of revolution. So, surface of revolution. Surface of revolution. Okay, so what do we have in the surface of revolution? So these are very easy kind of topics. So the first thing first, let us start with the volume V generated by y is equals to fx by revolving about x axis in x equals to a to b is given by v is equals to pi times integration a to b y square dx, where y is equals to fx. Clear? What do we mean by revolution is then, suppose you have the y1, this is 1 over x, so if you revolve it around the x axis, so this is the volume. Clear? The same thing you can do it for about y axis. If you do it for y axis, then you had v is equals to pi times integration c to d x square dy, where x is equals to f inverse of y. Okay, that is the inverse function. I guess you people can understand this at this level. This is about the volume. Now next we will talk about the surface area. So I am rubbing this. So surface area S generated by revolving about the x axis from a to b is given as S is equals to 2 pi times integration a to b y times root over of 1 plus y1 square dx. y1 is the first derivative of y. Same thing goes for revolution and in about the x axis, where you have here y is in place of y you have x, and x basically determines the inverse function. Clear? So this is one portion. If you have a parametric curve, then I know what you people have. So you will be having s is equals to 2 pi integration t1 to t2, where you know what are the values of t1 and t2. T1 is the inverse image of a, and t2 is the inverse image of b with respect to t, and this becomes your phi dash square plus psi dash square. Psi is the parametric function of y, and this is the parametric function of x, and here you have dt. I guess this portion is clear to all of you. I don't think there is some problem related to this. Do you have some problem related to this? I guess not. Okay. And the last of all these is the hyperbolic function. I'm giving you a brief description because a brief description is actually enough for hyperbolic function. So let's say hyperbolic function. The only thing you need to know in hyperbolic function is the expression in terms of e to the power x. That is, your sin x is given as e to the power x plus e to the power minus x over 2. Minus e to the power minus x over 2. Here you have cos x is equals to e to the power x plus e to the power minus x over 2. Tan x is equals to sin x over cos x. Cot x is equals to 1 over tan x. Sec x is equals to 1 over cos x, and the cosec x is equals to 1 over sin x. This much is clear, and all the derivatives and the integrations which you need to find if you are given a hyperbolic function, I refer you, do not memorize any of the formulas. Just what you do, you express sine or any trigonometric function which will be given to you, whose integration or differentiation you need to find out. Just express that trigonometric function in terms of e to the power x, solve the integration or differentiation, have a result. The result will be any of these 6, or maybe a combination of some of these, which you can easily identify if you have a bit of practice or you have a good understanding. Okay, so this is all you actually need to know in hyperbolic function. Okay, I think this is enough shorthand video of calculus topic. This can be very much important for BSc Honours student first semester, and as well as this can be of quite importance to people who try to learn math. Also maybe of some useful to competitive mathematics. So I hope you like the video. We will be meeting in the